I never thought I'd end up feeling this way about a gym instructor. Honestly, I went to the gym just to get my back in shape and maybe lose a little weight. My marriage had settled into this quiet, indifferent rhythm, and I'd convinced myself I was fine with it. But apparently, I wasn't. The first time I saw him, I almost stopped in the middle of the parking lot. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark skin that seemed to glow under the gym lights. And those eyes, calm but sharp, like he could see right through me. His name was Marcus. I told myself I was just there for guidance, for the workouts. But when he started showing me how to use the weights, adjusting my posture with those long, strong hands, I could feel a shiver run through me. I was embarrassed by it, of course. I mean, I'm a grown woman, married. And yet, the way he moved, the way he looked at me, it stirred something in me I hadn't felt in years. At first, it was just lingering in my mind. Little daydreams during boring work calls, or when I was sitting alone on the couch, feeling invisible. Then came the appointments, twice a week, just the two of us. He'd offer tips, his voice low and easy, and every word seemed to carry this subtle, magnetic pull. One day, he laughed at a dumb joke I made, and I felt my face flush in a way I hadn't in forever. I caught myself wondering what it would feel like to just lean into him, just for a second. I hated myself a little for thinking like that, but I couldn't help it. It was electric, the way he simply existed near me. I started finding excuses to go to the gym, even when I didn't need to. I'd linger after sessions, just to stretch in the same space as him, hoping, though I didn't know what I was hoping for, that he'd notice me lingering. The tension was subtle at first, almost playful. A brush of his hand adjusting my form, a glance that lingered too long. The quiet moments when the gym was empty except for us. I knew nothing had happened yet, and I didn't want it to, not really. But the pull was undeniable. And every time I left, I'd drive home feeling simultaneously guilty and alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't long before I started noticing the little things about him. The way his t-shirt clung to his chest, the muscles in his arms flexing without him even trying, the faint smell of his cologne mixed with sweat that lingered in the air after a session. I caught myself imagining what it would be like to be closer to him, to feel that strength against me. Ridiculous, I told myself. Married, responsible. But my mind didn't care about logic. One evening, the gym was nearly empty. Just the two of us and the faint hum of the air conditioning. He was helping me with a deadlift, hands guiding my back and shoulders, correcting my form. My heart was hammering in my chest, not from the lift, but from being that close. I could feel his breath near my ear as he gave instructions, low and smooth. For a second, I thought I might melt into him right there. I tried to focus on the exercise. Really, I did. But every movement, every accidental brush of his fingers on my skin was igniting a heat I hadn't felt in years. He said something about my posture, and our eyes met. That moment stretched out, too long, and I had to look away, pretending to adjust my grip on the bar. I felt dizzy, my thoughts a jumbled mess of guilt, longing, and curiosity. Then came the small talk that shouldn't have mattered, but did. He asked about my day, really asked, with that kind of attentive focus that made me feel seen. I laughed at a story I hadn't even thought was funny, And he laughed too. A deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate right through me. I wanted to reach out, to touch him in some way that was more than just part of the workout. But I didn't. Not yet. After that session, as I walked to my car, I caught my reflection in the glass doors. My cheeks were flushed, my hair a mess from the workout, but my eyes? They were alive in a way I hadn't noticed in years. And I realized, with a mix of fear and excitement, that this wasn't going to be just harmless flirtation. There was something building between us, something electric and unspoken, and it scared me more than I cared to admit. Over the next few weeks, I found myself showing up earlier, staying later, just to be around him. Every session became a delicate game of glances and touches that lingered a second too long. I'd catch him watching me stretch or adjusting my form, and there was this subtle smile, like he knew exactly the effect he had on me. My heart would skip, and my stomach would tighten, but I'd tell myself it was just my imagination. One afternoon, we were alone in the gym again. He was spotting me on the bench press, and as I pushed the weight, I felt his hands steady mine, his grip firm, reassuring. I looked up, and our eyes locked. For a long moment, we didn't speak. There was a tension in the air, thick and undeniable. I could feel the warmth from his body, the proximity making it impossible to ignore the attraction simmering between us. I caught myself thinking about what it would be like if I just let go, if I leaned into it, if I allowed myself to feel what I wanted so badly. He adjusted my posture again, his hands brushing my shoulders, and a shiver ran through me. I wanted to say something, anything, to test the waters, but my voice caught. My mind screamed, "Don't do it! Just don't!" And yet, part of me was desperate to cross that line, to see if he felt it too. Later, after the session, I sat on a bench, wiping my face with a towel, pretending to catch my breath while secretly watching him. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching me in return. There was a silence between us that felt heavy, almost intimate. I could feel the pull, this unspoken understanding that we were both aware of the tension, that we both knew how close we were to crossing a line we shouldn't. I left the gym that day with my chest tight, my mind buzzing. I couldn't stop replaying every touch, every glance. Part of me was terrified of what I was feeling, but another part wanted more. I hadn't acted on anything yet, but the thought alone was intoxicating. I realized I was standing on the edge, and it was thrilling and terrifying all at once. It was late one evening, the gym nearly empty except for us. I had stayed behind, telling myself I needed to finish a few stretches, but really, I just couldn't bring myself to leave. Marcus was clearing some equipment, and I watched him move. Easy, confident, every muscle in motion, like it was meant to be seen. My pulse quickened, and I felt this ache, a mixture of desire and guilt that I hadn't felt in years. "Do you want a spot on the leg press?" he asked, his voice low and casual, but there was something in his tone, something that made my stomach twist. I nodded, trying to focus, but as he stood behind me, his hands resting lightly on my hips to adjust my posture, the warmth of his body sent a shiver through me. I could feel his breath, and I realized how close we were, how dangerously close. We worked in silence for a while, the kind of silence that feels louder than words. Every time he shifted his hands, every time our fingers brushed, my mind went wild. I imagined letting go, imagining what it would feel like to surrender to this tension. But I didn't. I couldn't. And yet, every fiber of me wanted to. Afterward, I sat on a bench, catching my breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. He leaned on the wall nearby, watching me with that quiet intensity that made me feel exposed. He said nothing, just looked. And in that look, I could read everything we weren't saying. The pull, the desire, the unspoken question hovering between us. I wanted to lean toward him, to see if he would close the distance, but I forced myself to look away. I left the gym that night, feeling both relieved and frustrated. The tension between us had reached a peak, a point where it could have tipped over into something forbidden, but it hadn't. And maybe that was what made it so addictive. Every glance, every accidental touch, every lingering moment was a tease, a whisper of what could be, and it left me aching, alive, and more aware of my own desires than I had been in years. A few days later, I found myself back at the gym, the memory of that last evening still fresh in my mind. Every time I thought about Marcus, my chest tightened, a mixture of longing and guilt that made me dizzy. I told myself I had to keep my distance, but as soon as I saw him, that resolve wavered. He smiled, and I felt it all over again. The pull, the temptation, the almost electric connection that made everything feel dangerous and alive at the same time. During our session, I caught myself lingering in stretches near him, pretending to need guidance, just to feel the brush of his hands, the subtle closeness. He adjusted my form, his touch brief but deliberate, and our eyes met. For a heartbeat, it felt like we were standing on the edge of something neither of us could name. I felt my pulse quicken, imagining what could happen if I let myself give in. But then, instinct and reason collided with desire, and I stepped back, literally and mentally, reminding myself that this was a boundary I couldn't cross. Afterwards, we exchanged the usual polite smiles and small talk. But underneath it all, the tension hummed like a live wire. I left the gym feeling a strange mixture of relief and frustration, knowing that nothing had happened, yet also knowing that the moment we almost did would stay with me forever. The experience had awakened something in me, a reminder of who I was beneath the routines, the responsibilities, the boredom of a marriage gone indifferent. I never told anyone about the feelings, the stolen glances, or the moments that left me trembling with desire and guilt. Marcus and I continued our sessions, careful and professional, yet always aware of the thin line that we danced along. It became a secret thrill, a quiet acknowledgement of the human desires we both carried. And in that almost affair, I discovered a part of myself I thought I had lost. And that's the thing about desire. It doesn't always need to be acted on to be real. Sometimes it's enough to feel it, to recognize it, and to remember that even in the mundane, ordinary stretches of life, we're alive, capable of feeling deeply, even if we never cross the line. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that explore the tension, curiosity, and secrets that make life unexpectedly thrilling.